So my name is Jon Eckhardt. I'm a professor at University of Wisconsin-Madison in Wisconsin School of Business and Entrepreneurship, and also the editor-in-chief at the Entrepreneur Innovation Exchange. And here with us today as part of our customer discovery series, we have Wes Schroll, who is the founder and chief executive officer of Fetch Rewards, a company that's headquartered in Madison, Wisconsin, has operations in several other locations in the United States. We're going to have a discussion around the customer discovery model that's described in Steve Blank and Bob Dorff's book, The Startup Owner's Manual. So welcome, Wes.
Thank you. Great to be here, Jon.
Thank you for joining us today. So first, I just want to start off by congratulating you on the recent news this week as being the founder now of, I think this is probably safe to say, Madison's maybe second unicorn, with the first being Epic Systems. It might be which is a very large software electronic record management company here in Madison. And now we have Fetch Rewards. So if you could just share with us what is Fetch Rewards and what do you do?
Yeah, absolutely. It's especially an honor after starting the business while going to school at University of Wisconsin-Madison to be there 8 years later and be one of the two, and continuing on this trajectory right now. We're really excited for the future, but it's definitely an honor. It's an amazing entrepreneurial community that's there. So feel like we're hopefully doing them all proud for all the support that they gave us early on. Fetch Rewards is, our main product is a mobile application that can be used by right now anyone in the US that helps people save on day-to-day transactions that they're making. We initially started by focusing on grocery. So we partner today with over 500 brands and retailers that will reward you anytime you spend money with them in the physical or the online world. So from a consumer's perspective, all you do is download the free app, take pictures of any receipts that you have, or connect your digital account so you can forward your emails and things like that with transactions in them. We will then process those. And if you bought any of those brands or shopped at any of those retailers, you will earn Fetch points, which are our currency that you can turn around and turn into hundreds of different things, everything from virtual gift cards to digital cash forms. You can enter into sweepstakes, donate to charity, all kinds of different things. So we launched the product in March of 2017. So we've been around for about 4 years now with that specific product. We have about 7 million monthly active users, growing quick on that side, and about 425 employees.
So your business must have like certain inputs, right? You've got like software, you have a mobile app, you've got like other stuff, and then like you generating these outputs. So let's talk about the inputs for a minute. What makes Fetch go?
Yeah, so I mean, it is truly a software-enabled company. So the main platform, the main input is via the mobile application, and it is digitizing the information that we are collecting from an image of that receipt. It is understanding that information. So, first you're running the OCR, you're pulling off all the text off of that physical receipt. You then actually have to have models that understand and know that this portion of text is the retailer's name, this portion is the date, this is an item. In the grocery space, there's over 1 million different products that are sold in the US on an annual basis. So everything from Oreos to double stuffed Oreos to inside out Oreos. Each one of those is a different product. And what the systems are working hard to do is to understand what's coming off that piece of paper, which one of those items it is, what was the price that it was sold at. All of that information is then fed into our backend system so that we can then identify, hey, this is one of our partner products. Boom, you earn points for it. Or maybe, no, this is actually not a product you earn points for, but is in the same category of a product that we do have that you could buy next time that would earn you more points. So a lot of our system is about then providing recommendations to the consumers for how they can maximize their points, which helps our partners who are the ones issuing the points because they get more sales off of that. So if you think about your average consumer, they may have 20% of their annual spend in groceries are on things that they're super loyal to. They're not going to change. I buy Pepsi, I'm never going to buy Coke. No problem. The other 80%, chances are they're flip-flopping and they're willing to consolidate their purchases to a single brand. They just want that brand to actually reward them in a way that is meaningful and easy. And that's what Fetch provides. So those are some of the different inputs that but it really, again, all starts with that consumer taking the actual, starting that input, and then our technology translating it into information to actually then run the systems.
So, I'll be honest with you, Wes, and that's a fantastic overview. Thank you. Is that many people will think, look, to do all those things, what Wes is like a super uber individual that knows everything, and he knows how to program, he knows how to manage, thousands of people, he knows how to do absolutely everything that's built around this business. And so that enables you to become and build this company it's very large as quickly as you've done. What are your thoughts on that? Like, are you a programmer? Are you like someone with 30 years of experience in the grocery industry? Like, what's the background to become someone like you?
Yeah, I think even if I wanted to lie and try to pretend I was that person, you knew me when I was 17, trying to figure out what school to go to and eventually going into UW. You could probably point out that those things aren't true. So no, I don't have a background in technology. I don't have a background in coding. I can't code. I took some classes while I was in my freshman year at UW on HTML and CSS. So not in programming languages, but more stylistic languages for internet. But I really, what my background was in and what attracted me to doing a startup and doing Fetch in the first place was I liked being a part of teams that were bigger than any one individual, where you could bring in different. I played basketball and football growing up, and what I loved about both those sports is there were clear positions and positional players. You may be a better all-around player than someone, but you will not be better at them at their specific position. And I liked that. And I liked how when you brought together a bunch of those people who were specialists in their areas, you could create something amazing. You could be playing against the most talented team in the world, but if they couldn't work well together and they didn't have the right positional players, you could still beat them. And the adversity that you would go through in any one game, the swings and scoring and, the momentum was something that I always loved. It's all about staying even throughout it. Startups and starting a business are the exact same as both of those. You have to find positional players who are willing to come in. You have to check yourself at the door and know you're not the smartest person anymore for that specific area that they were brought in. And your goal is more of to help them in their journey and help them to see the same vision and then to deliver on that vision, because you have to then trust that they will build the right thing or that they will think about it the right way. And same thing, you'll go through tons of ups and downs throughout the business where you think you're on top of the world, you think that the business is going to crash and burn, but you have to stay kind of level through it and make good decisions, continue to think about the long-term state, be flexible in your ideas. I think all of that is what really got me, excited. So by no means do I touch all the different areas. We've now surrounded ourselves with people that are experts in those areas. We empower them with the information and the trust to make the decisions, since they're closer to the problem and the experts, and we support them through ups and downs, making the right decisions. They'll sometimes make the wrong decisions. It's okay, as long as we're all learning together and going up and to the right. That's what we focus on.
So give me the pitch then. So let's take us back to, Wes running around with a slide deck and it's got Fetch on the front of it, or maybe it was called something else then. And then you're trying to get these people to join you. And you want to get, the kind of people that are going to be able to help you build what you've built today, and you continue to build. How do you talk them into it? I'm talking employees here, not investors.
Yeah. So it was called Fetch too, all the way back to when we started this. I think what it starts with is you have to put in the work before having those conversations. So I had been working on Fetch by myself for probably 9 months. I was learning about the industry because I had to I knew I was going to go out there and try to get some technical folks to come help me out. They had to believe that I was an expert in the space that we were wanting to go tackle, because they're not experts in grocery. So I had to go and do that homework. I had to go find advisors to bring on board to kind of start to make it feel like it's more than just Wes. It's more than just an idea. This idea has been well thought out. You can answer the basic questions people are going to ask. And then what you do is you're getting them there, you're getting them excited, you're distilling down that 9 months worth of homework that you have done on understanding the industry and the opportunity. You're distilling it down to like 5 minutes of, here's the industry that you experience. Like, here's how it runs. There starts with, manufacturing the products. They go to a warehouse, they go to the retailer, they then go to the consumer. The people who made the products at first can't even talk to you, the end consumer. So there's tons of intermediate players that are sucking value out of the system. Wouldn't it be nice if you could convince this side of the value chain to connect directly with this side, and we could take some of the value? Like, as simple as that. That's what we help our brands to do initially. So it was all about convincing them that you were knowledgeable in this space, that you could articulate what the high level problem is and why, if you solve that problem, it would create a lot of value. And then it was all about, hey, and the missing piece is just you. What we need is your expertise to come in and bring to life this portion of the business, which for us was like, maybe it was the mobile app, maybe it was the iOS app, maybe it was the Android app, maybe it was the back end. But again, you had to I had to put in the work ahead of time. I had to make sure that when they did ask questions, well, how are we going to make money? Or who's our first client going to be? You couldn't be, well, I don't know. You had to actually have thought that stuff through. You had to think about, I had mock-ups of what the app could look like that I had just drawn out in Microsoft Paint to just elicit the fact that they're not coming into something that is not been thought through. You have to convince them that there's something already here. They're now just joining a part of something. So you basically are selling that it's more than just you, more than just, some random idea you have. They're joining something that is going to gain momentum with their expertise.
So it's you be gaining some credibility and familiarity with the industry as sort of a basis of the conversation with others is kind of what I'm hearing, if that's correct.
Yeah, exactly. Because again, it extrapolates the conversation from just being about, hey, I'm Wes, let me tell you about me. Let me try to convince you on me, to let me convince you on something bigger than me. Let me tell you about this industry. Let me tell you about this problem that exists. Let me tell you about why, I've identified through a solution that looks maybe like this, we could solve that. And now we just need you to plug in to help us actually do it. So it's all about eliciting that confidence that this can be done. I've done the work. We know the space. We need you now.
And for someone who's stepping into like probably one of the older industries, how do you quickly get up to speed in a way that's credible?
That one is really tough. I mean, for me, I really leaned into my age. So at the time when I was starting this, I was 19. You would be amazed at the amount of people who want to help. Now, when you're 19, it's helpful because a lot of the people that you're reaching out to, these C-suite executives at these large brands, have kids my age. So right away, there's that bit of a connection where they just want to help someone out who's thinking creatively. But even if you don't have age on your side and you're just coming up with a new idea, do not be afraid to reach out. And again, don't make it about you. You're not reaching out to tell them about Wes. I'm reaching out to tell them about this big opportunity that I think is sitting within an industry that they know and that I want their feedback on. It's not I want to sell you, it's I want your feedback on this. And you position it that way, they start to engage, they hear you out, they're providing feedback, but that then opens the door. So you take their feedback in, you rework the materials, you reach back out to them and say, hey, you think this is on a better track record? And again, you're not asking them to buy anything. I mean, so much about building credibility in a new industry, if you don't have experience there, is about just creating those relationships, finding those people who want to help, and then actually utilizing their help and showing them that you're listening to them and that you're actually making progress along the way for what they're interested in, interested in what you're doing. So that's what we focused on doing. And that's what helped us over time to build up enough credibility. And sometimes you start really low too. So we also started with like one local grocery store and just get to know the grocery store owner and the baggers and the stockers. And then a lot about, the base level of that industry. So then when you go and make the connection to the person at the top, you can reference that and you actually know some of the words in their lingo. So they know, again, you've already put in the work. It's not just me coming to you for a favor. I've put in the work. I think I can help you type of thing.
So it's doing the work and then reaching out and not being shy to do that. I can't overstate more, I think, the good and strong position that students have, particularly undergraduates do, when they're trying to knock on these doors. In addition to the approach that you talked about, I literally have seen it be very effective for a student to email a business person and say, hey, I found you on the internet or whatever. I read about you in some article and I really admire the work that you've done. You get into something specific. You say like, hey, like I noticed like this, and that. I'd love to schedule a meeting to just learn more about you and how you've been able to build the career that you have. And the hit rate on that is very high. Many business people, they're eager to meet somebody else who actually has put enough time in to actually appreciate what they've done and then to learn from them. And another good approach is you go to your professor and you say, hey, professor, so-and-so, like I'd love to meet somebody in a certain industry or whatever. Can you help me do that? Don't be surprised if the professor gives you some homework first and says, oh, go like read about this or learn about that. They're testing you and you come back and you've done that work, then you're going to get a lot of introduction. So I think you're in a great position for those that want to jump into it. And then of course, there's the alumni network. Any school that you're related to in some tangential way has a bunch of folks that are just completely so enthusiastic about that school, whether it's Wisconsin or Penn State or Minnesota or, some of these other schools. It's harder for me to say as much as I like to say Wisconsin. They all have great alumni that really want to be part of a student's growth.
Yeah, and don't think of that getting that first meeting with that executive as the end state. That should never be the end state that you're focused on, which is why, as you said, you're going to go put in that work ahead of time. If I wanted to go and talk with someone in the federal government, I'd better have talked to someone in my local state government or something like that beforehand, so that I've proven that I'm not just reading your articles and interested, but I'm actually putting in the work, learning from other people that are all feeding up into this system, that if one, I do get that meeting with the top person in the federal, component of the system, I can now reference the conversations that I've had with their peers. That is where this person was 3 years ago, or 30 years ago. That's the work that you got to put in. It's not just even reading those articles. It's like, you have to, if your goal is to get to the person up here, you should have talked to 5 people down here first, because you're just prepping yourself for that meeting, so you knock that meeting out of the park and have clear outcomes of what you're trying to get.
All right, so let's transition a little bit, and I think it's a super helpful conversation. People take that to heart. Let's just dive into the topic of the chapter. And so this chapter is really about optimization on 2 fronts: optimization on the sales process, and also on a path towards increasing and building value for your customers around the features of the product and the core value proposition. And in Fetch's case, there are some pivots along the way to get to the spot that you're in today. And I'd love to talk through those pivots and to kind of provide a teaser for those that are listening or watching at the moment. The final or the current moment at the end of these pivots leads to an investment from SoftBank, which is one of the most premier venture firms in the world. And, they've gotten a lot of attention recently for some of the missteps that they've had. But if you go back and look at SoftBank's portfolio and their successes, you're not going to have that kind of success without some missteps along the way. That is how the venture space works. And their successes have been quite tremendous, and they've helped enable some of the top entrepreneurs on the planet. So with that, let's go back to the very beginning idea of Fetch and talk us through the path towards and the pivots towards centering on what Fetch is today and what led to the growth of millions of users on the current platform.
Yeah, so we've had 2 clear pivots that stand out in the evolution. So the idea first came as I was moving out of my freshman year dorm, where I was being fed every meal. I was getting all the shopping was done through the UW branded store campus, and then into an apartment my sophomore year, where I was actually having to go out and do all these things for myself across tons of different retailers, tons of different choices that I had. And also, being from Massachusetts originally, I was flying back and forth to Massachusetts to go home for holidays and things like that. And no matter which category of spend I was thinking about that I was being introduced to, whether it was which gas station I was going to go to, which retailer or grocery store I was going to go to, which restaurant, which airline I was going to fly, they were all trying to tell me that they care so much about me as a consumer and that they want to connect with me. Here's all the hoops I can go and jump through if I want to earn rewards for my loyalty and their thank you to me. And I always thought that was really backwards. I thought, well, if all of them are trying to say that they're here for me, why are they all trying to create these one-off programs that would make me have to sign up for 15 different things just to get value? Shouldn't there be a single program that I participate in because I enjoy and I like, and then all of them come and compete for me on that platform that I've chosen that I want to be on? So that was where the original idea started. If you pull up the original Fetch Rewards deck.
Let me just pause for a second. I mean,
yeah.
That is a very customer centric approach to this.
Yes.
You're thinking about the end user, but it is hardly easy to solve that challenge that you're coming up with. So I admire you for your boldness and your focus on the customer. I'd love to hear how this unfolds.
Yeah, and a lot of people, it's so funny in hindsight, you can call it focus on the customer. I would call it was a much more selfish focus. I just cared about what my experience was because I was the customer. I wasn't thinking being customer centric. I was just thinking about selfishly, what would I want? And then I just assumed, hey, if I want this, probably other people want it too. And that's what actually got us to the first pivot, though, is because it is a huge, bold undertaking, that original vision. That made so much sense to me as a consumer, and everyone else I talked to, instantly the idea clicked in their mind of yeah, of course that should exist. But how do you go about doing that? How do you go about getting multi-billion-dollar companies to come and work with you? This 19-year-old kid, who has no users or anything like that. That's the challenge. So what we did is we actually pivoted to a product that narrowed down the focus way, way, way down to just a single store. So we actually partnered with a single grocery store, and we made it so that app only worked in that single grocery store. So then the only customers we cared about were people walking in that door. And which is great at a captive market, so we could talk to people at the front door when they walk in. And we said, here, scan your barcodes of your items as you go through the store. We'll connect you with brands who will earn points for buying their products. So we had partnered with the local dairy company. We had partnered with the local branch of Molson Coors. We had partnered with all these small, very regional focused brands. And we started to build up credibility.
Now, is this Fresh Madison Market?
Yep, this is Fresh Madison Market.
I will just say, Jeff Maurer has been incredibly supportive of young entrepreneurs that want to try something in a store. It's a very innovative grocery store downtown Madison, built for students. It's kind of like a much more modern, fresh, healthier version of a grocery store for students. But I've had several of my students come and run products through a store. He's always been very supportive.
And this is the thing, right? Sure, I could have tried to go to a Walmart right away. But the percent chance of me getting to Walmart, and even if I got to the right person at Walmart and convinced them this was a good idea, my ability to execute at that scale was zero. There was no way you could do it. Versus we found a grocery store owner who happened to have a grocery store on a college campus, which means naturally the owner is very innovative and forward thinking and wanting to connect with younger folks, which is exactly what he is. Jeff is amazing at that. And he then gave us free reign. He would lock us in the store at night from midnight to 6 a.m. We would work on the technology. We would test it in a closed grocery store. So we had an entire environment to ourselves. And then when the doors were unlocked at 6 a.m., we would go out there and start talking to his customers. We'd be super helpful with them. We'd stock the shelves for Jeff if he needed us to. We would do whatever it took to just feel good that we were in that store, getting the chance to test and getting our product in front of users. That was the time of just hustle, try the product, get MVPs out there, iterate, test a bunch of things. So that was the first product that we ended up launching, which was actually a pivot off of the original idea. The second pivot came because we took what we learned in that one store and we started expanding it out because we were seeing some good traction with consumers enjoying it and brands liking it, store owners liking it. And over the next 4 years, we grew it to over 100 stores that it was installed within, and probably 100,000 users. That was a tipping point to get us the attention of these regional and then eventually national brand managers, where they were saying, wow, we like what you're doing in Wisconsin. How do you do it across the whole nation? And since we now had this dialogue and the connection to those people who manage the budgets nationally, it was our time to pivot back. We said, well, what if we launched an app that through scanning of receipts, so it could work anywhere, we would be able to deliver that one-to-one connection, deliver those promotions, change behavior, and do all those things. And that was when we saw them leaning in enough. We saw the technology was there with receipt reading just good enough at the time to be able to do it. And we decided to swing the whole business back to focus on that, take all the learnings, all the code base that we had developed for the first app, and actually just roll it right into the second one, which was Fetch Rewards. And that's why we were able to launch it in about 3 months. And then by the end of year one, already have 100,000 users. So what took us 4 years to build in the first one took 1 year the next time. And then it just kept growing faster after that.
Now, the first app had the ability to facilitate the checkout, if I remember correctly, when you're leaving the store instead of working at the register, or to make that process a lot faster. Yep. Now, is that part of the current app?
No, it is not. What we found there is it is such a complex transaction that's actually taking place there. They're looking at everything from where all those items scanned to across the US, there are hundreds of types of POS systems, the point of sale systems, that are really hard to integrate with. I mean, taking months to integrate with them. So in order to make a system like that work and be available nationwide would have taken 10 years worth of integration, versus when we instead focused in on the receipt. Even all these different POS systems, they print off a receipt that is roughly the same. It has a store logo, the date, the time, and all the individual items, how much you paid for it. That's pretty similar across all these different retailers. Actually, it's federally mandated that you have to provide one of these if you're completing a transaction. So that's the aha we had of, oh, we don't have to do something that is specific to every retailer. It could work everywhere. Maybe not deliver quite as much value because we can't help you with a faster checkout, but we could still deliver all this savings, and we could do so in a much easier way. And that's what we wanted to focus on.
And how do you, so was it hard to give that up, all the technology you had built around the register or the checkout process?
No, I mean, for us, it was learning. Like it was a huge learning opportunity for us to have seen that. We also, the technology that we built there, again, the code base of what was running the actual app. So not the checkout hardware, but the base app that we had built. There was a fraud detection layer in there. There was, there was campaign management for running different promotions. All of that we duplicated and turned into the second app. So we didn't walk away from we walked away from maybe 25% of the work we did, but 75% of it gave us the start to, at this right time, this rare time where brands were ready to lean into it, hit the ground running and have a product launched in the market within 3 months that would have normally taken a company at least a year to develop. And therefore, we were the first ones. We got to lock up the best brands in the world on our program and expand from there.
So just to, excuse me, just to maybe frame this up a little bit, do you have a sense of how much you spent to build the technology around the checkout process? Like what I hear in the story, how much?
Hundreds of thousands of dollars.
I mean, what I hear in this story is a fair amount of courage, right? In the sense that you've made this investment in something that, was at some level was working. Like I used it functioned. And it was certainly expensive, especially when you're talking about startup budgets, probably at that time. And then you're like, wait a minute, like there's this piece of paper all along that we can just use that and we can just walk away from this thing that we've been spending on. And I think what you said is, look, that was expensive, but it was learning, let's call it tuition, that got us to the point that we're at today. And we're able to walk away from that, but help other entrepreneurs know how to navigate that, because maybe the right answer would have been, we're going to stick with that register technology. What kind of things that kind of led you to feel comfortable in the decision that you made? What kind of metrics were you using? What kind of frameworks? Any advice on that?
I think the reality of it is there's no science to knowing when when the pivots make sense or anything like that. I think, this is, I'll explain that in a second. I think it's a gut. It's a gut feeling that you have. And once you feel that gut feeling, that it's come from seeing weeks and maybe months and maybe years worth of data that is influencing that gut decision. Because I've been running the business for 4 years. I had seen all the trends. I knew all the problems with that original business. I knew how hard it was going to be to work with all these different POS systems. I knew that individual retailers were all different. The implementation was different, that our consumer retention wasn't as great. I knew any one of those factors could have been solved for. But the culmination of having tried to step change those for 3 years and not having seen them step change, and then getting this aha moment where it's like, wait, this could solve 5 out of the 6 problems. This one decision could solve 5 out of the 6 problems. It was the time to do it. Look, if I had a time machine, I'd be going back and instead saying, why don't we just focus on that in the first place? But you don't. You have to make the decision with what information you have at that point in time. And there is this huge bias that exists of sunk cost fallacy. That exists every time you're looking at making a decision between a project you're starting and whether you kill the project or not. There's emotional sunk costs, there's financial sunk costs, there's all of these different things. You have to check that out at the door, though, because none of that matters. Because all that matters is the decision, is it the right one from this point moving forward? And it's easier said than done, but that's why I'm saying your gut is actually what's typically the best at identifying that, because it's what's processing all those disparate data sources, knowing the trends. And if you, as the founder or someone really close to the business, your gut is telling you that this path is going to be slow and full of slogging through all of these problems, and there's a potential solution to solve 5 of the 6 major problems, you got to go for it.
One of the observations that I do love about the lean startup genre and the model as described in the Startup Owner's Manual is that they have an argument that what one should be focusing on at kind of the stage of the business that we're talking about here, not profits and revenue and costs, but learning. And that you're going to spend a pile of cash, and you're going to hopefully not spend a smaller pile, but you're going to spend money to try and figure things out. And some, to the scientists that might be watching this makes complete sense. This is what we do as a business. So we'll put together a grant proposal and we'll submit it to somebody, and we're going to say, look, we're going to invest in this trajectory, and we're going to hopefully make a scientific discovery that will teach us something new. The metric of that entire project is knowledge generation, right? And, I give a lot of credit to the folks that pioneered the lean startup movement to basically bring that same kind of thinking to the startup space and saying, look, we're going to spend and we're going to work for a certain period of time, and our metrics are going to be learning. we're going to be figuring out what the business model is. And then after we figured out what that is, then you switch to the more traditional business metrics. It's always the goal is to come up with revenue and costs in a profitable business, but you're managing the company in the wrong way is their argument. If in the early stages of the company, you're not focusing on the learning as the primary job and task at hand, instead of kind of building something that looks like a business. And it sounds like that's where your mind was when you were able to walk away from it, in part because it was tuition to figure out this thing that you now knew. Let me ask you about these receipts now. So you have that aha moment and you're looking at this receipt and the information that you want, it's there, right? The next step is like, well, how do you get it off that receipt? How are you doing that?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a much more complex technical problem than you would expect because of the variability on receipts, whether it was from different retailers, they have different layouts, they have, Oreo on one receipt may mean regular Oreo, and then ORO, because the person who entered it in happened to forget the E, is also Oreo. And you have to be able to build a system that's flexible enough to truly learn. I mean, it's using machine learning to basically be able to take in seeing hundreds of examples of this, have a correction feed, whether that's from a human looking at it, or maybe the person who scanned it correcting the receipt and telling us what it is, has to take that feedback in and then accept it as truth moving forward. I think actually almost everyone has seen examples of this happening and participated in it themselves when you think about CAPTCHA. So when you you're going to buy something and you see like the scribbled letters or something, often that was being used to translate books, where the computer was going through and looking at all the pages of old text and historical. Now it's being used for like Google Street Maps to identify street names and which things are bicycles, which things are crosswalks, so that I could train for autonomous vehicles moving forward. You're helping with training that. You're the human involved in helping a machine to be able to look at a picture and say, this is a dog or this is not a dog. So everyone's kind of doing that. We do the same thing, but just specifically with receipts matching to specific items. So that's a lot of what's going on there. So there's initial OCR, which is just the technology to be able to go from the pixels that's on that's been taken in the picture to translate those into characters. So numbers, letters, and then there's the intelligence layer that makes sense of what are these numbers and letters at this store, so on and so forth. And then you have all the other factors of people crumple up receipts. Sometimes there's a big red line on it. Sometimes there's a coffee stain on it. You have to be able to correct for all those things too. So it's a fascinatingly challenging problem, which is what's very defensible about what we do and the unique technologies we've built around it. It's much harder to do than you would expect once you start to get in and think about all the edge cases and how frequently those edge cases happen. But that's essentially what's going on there.
Got it. Okay. Now let's continue down the path. So you figured out how to get the data off of the receipts, building some in-house tech around like OCR and then machine learning kind of on top of that. So how do you then, get to the kind of the rapid user growth that leads you to the users that you have today?
So the user growth is all about that product experience. What we figured out is there's this intersection that plays out in all kinds of different industries where you take something that everyone knows that they should do and you combine it with something that they want to do. Take Peloton, they take exercise. Everyone hands down knows you should exercise, but not a lot of people want to actually go out there and exercise. Some people will, but a lot of people won't. So you combine it with something that's competitive and fun and engaging, and then all of a sudden people do it. Same with monitoring steps. Same with Tesla. Everyone knows that they should save the world and drive a cleaner car. There were plenty of hybrids and electric cars before Tesla, but Tesla took something everyone should do and made it look cool and made it fun with a car that looked amazing that you can play fart sounds through. Like, it was fun and goofy. We were doing the exact same thing. Everyone knows that they should save money, but no one actually wants to go through all the hoops to actually do it. So we then combine that with something that's easy and fun. And when you have that intersection, and that's why we have points, which are very gamified, make it fun. You scan a receipt, it's kind of like this lottery. How many points am I going to earn? And you see the points and it explodes on screen. Your phone vibrates. There's confetti that shoots out. It's like, wow, I just got something. I was going to do the shopping trip anyways. I just got something extra on top of it. You feel smart. You feel like you're in the know on something. That was the key for us, was introducing and eliciting those type of emotions. So where our average, monthly active user now submits over 20 receipts per month. So they're almost using our app daily because you do a lot of shopping. I mean, people do a lot of shopping, but between grocery, convenience, drug, now we do restaurant, we do apparel, electronics, all of that. And now we basically, our users will tell you whenever they see a receipt, the first thing they do is just, might as well scan it because I'm going to earn some points. And now I have a digital record of it if I ever need it in the future too. So that was for us the product intersection, and a product like that people want to talk about. So people refer people very, very quickly and at a large scale. So it's really helped us with our growth is we have really, really good organic growth that takes place in the business.
So, I'll tell you that we've all used, scanning apps on our phone, to make a PDF or whatever. And I think the experience I have with the Fetch Reward app is that it's a happy experience. Like I feel happy. It does these little cool things. Like it tells me that like, hey, like I got the signature, I got like this thing and this thing off of the receipt. And it's just sort of like a more smoother, like joyous experience. It's definitely not cumbersome. Now you talked about a lot of organic growth. Do you use this chapter is really about optimization around acquisition on the customer side. What other things are you doing? Are you running Facebook ads? Like what other ways you're building the growth of the user base?
Yeah, so organic's huge for us, and the user base would grow organically on its own month over month, but just not at the pace that we believe we can sustain and our partners can sustain. So we do amplify that with our own paid media. Our paid media will, we look for one-click at attributable sources like digital impressions. So that could be a Facebook where the Facebook ad, and you can click out and you can watch how many people click from that, get to the App Store, download it. How much is it costing to get that person to not just download the app, but to actually sign up and to scan their first receipt. And then we can optimize off of, we don't want to just a bunch of people who download the app because that may target it towards one demographic. We want people who will get to their first receipt scan. And then we'll actually use their algorithms to target more and more lookalikes of people who will most efficiently get all the way down to scanning their first receipt. Now, Facebook is actually only like a very small portion of our overall spend. We do the same thing across a ton of different digital properties. There could be the different Google properties, so YouTube and things like that. It could be digital content like on different websites that will sponsor people like, hey, how to save money. Here's 10 easy ways to save money, and Fetch is right there. That could be a partnership. We do influencers as well. We have a big partnership with influencers. There's tons of mommy blogs out there. And one of the things that people are looking to do when they have a new baby, save money. So we look to partner through all those. And then our brands actually help us too. So you'll see, in some stores, there'll be in-store signage, which is, hey, you want to save the equivalent of $5 on, these purchases, download Fetch, scan your receipt, and we'll get it to you, brought to you by Unilever. So we kind of do joint marketing with them as well.
All right, let's talk SaaS products that support your business. Like, are there certain things where you're like, yeah, like these are the 5 or 10 or the 3 things that really accelerated or helped me kind of leverage and grow? Is this, whether it be something like HubSpot or other tools like that? Are there any particular that come to mind where you got your hands on it and it just really worked for you?
I mean, there's a suite of Amazon products between their servers and, they have all kinds of different monitoring systems that you can hook in that account for a huge portion of our SaaS spend and value. I mean, they are truly that good. There's a reason why they were, the choice of almost everyone. I mean, their systems are just great.
Do they have tools that help with customer acquisition, customer discovery? Or is it more scalability?
No, but they can run some of the analytics, and then they can help with the scale of the customer acquisition, which is super important because you don't want a bunch of people coming in if the app's just going to fall over. So that's why my mind goes to that one right away. In terms of other one, our marketing team has a large marketing stack of technology platforms that they're utilizing. Iterable is one of the biggest ones that we use for targeting right communication to the right customer at the right time. So it's like pulling in the right content. So that the brands that are available for John are getting pulled into his email versus the brands that are available for Wes are pulled into my email. So it's very customized and feels very personalized. So we actually work with them on a lot of that stuff. We have all kinds of tracking partners too that then help us with tracking these different flows of consumers through the ad spend that we're doing. So there's a bunch that are super value. I mean, we lean into those. Why build it yourself if there's someone who's already gotten the experience for building it for 100 other people that we can leverage? I mean, if it's something core to the business, we'll do it ourselves. But if it's some of those other things that, again, hundreds of other businesses are focused on, why not partner with someone on it?
Got it. Okay. So we've got, some time left here. And what the careful listeners probably realize is you're actually running a two-sided business. You got the consumers on one end, people in the grocery stores. And on the other side, you have these companies that are selling product to the consumers, like, whoever's selling Oreos right now is a Kellogg, I think maybe.
Mondelez.
And who is?
Mondelez.
Oh, I didn't even know that. All right, fantastic. And I do, by the way, love Oreos. It's a weakness, so we can't have them in the house, otherwise it gets them all. But it's kryptonite for me, actually. So talk us through. So this chapter is more about optimization than kind of like the first pitch. Talk us through how you're systematizing that part of your business so you can bring on more of these larger players.
Honestly, it's still one of the things we're getting better at. For us, we were, the biggest competitor to what Fetch was doing is a brand saying, I'm going to launch my own loyalty program and think that they can take it on themselves. So a huge amount of it is trying to not come at from a sales perspective, but more from an educational perspective of, got it. So you, Oreo, want to go launch your own program. So you're going to ask people to go download the Oreo app and then, take a picture of their receipt to confirm that they bought Oreos. And then you're going to reward them for buying Oreos. Got it. What happens when everyone else in the space starts doing that? And, who are the customers that are going to retain within that, right? It's going to be the people who are already buying so many Oreos that they can earn something meaningful. The person who is only buying it once, yeah, exactly, it's John. The people who are only buying it once every other month, they're never going to earn anything meaningful. So they're going to fall off. They're going to forget about the app. Versus in the approach like Fetch, you have 500 brands that are all available that for the most part are not competing with each other. So you, Oreo, wouldn't care if that customer is also getting rewarded for Bolthouse or Pepsi or, all these other ones. But you get the benefit of having those touch points and the ability to communicate to that customer when the time is right and they are thinking about Oreos. So for us, a lot of it was educational, helping people to think through that, because it's hard. Like, I understand working at one of these brands, all you think about 24/7 when you're thinking about, grocery is your brand. Like, I'm thinking about Oreo. I'm an Oreo manager. I think about Oreo 24/7 because it's your business. Like, it's your livelihood. Your average household, unless it's John, is not thinking about Oreo 24/7.
I was going to say me too. So
yeah,
maybe I should be an Oreo brand manager.
Exactly. But you're probably the top 1 or 2% of their consumers that are that diehard loyal. And great, they could launch a program for you guys. But what they really care about is the 95% long tail. That's where their opportunity is.
That's right. Yeah.
So that's a huge part of the learning for us, was getting better at doing educational type selling, which was truly just kind of laying out like the thought process against it and helping them to balance what it would be like to do it themselves versus do it with a partner like us. And then from there, like, we're constantly learning now at this point, because once we've gotten them over that hurdle, the question becomes like, who else can you work with? We're starting to realize we can work with their data teams, their marketing teams, their trade dollar teams, their advertising or PR group. We can help them with sampling. So right now it's also just trying to figure out, well, what else can we do for you? And then building up the team and the expertise to go and do it, and then rinse and repeat. Do what we just did for Unilever and bring it over to Kimberly-Clark and PepsiCo. And so that's still a huge part of what we're doing right now, is we keep finding additional places of value that we can create. And then it's like, okay, got it, execute on it, prove it out, roll it out to the rest of the partners.
Got it. Okay. Now, when did you really feel like this thing was working? Like, when you really looked at your user base and, month on month or whatever, like things were really taking off for you.
So there was a point in time where it was very clear to me that this was going to work, period. And that was actually really early on. It was about 3 months after launching the Fetch Rewards app. It fell over, and you would submit a receipt, and we took between 45 and 60 days to process that receipt. So I kid you not, you'd open the app, you'd take a picture, and we'd say, hey, we're swamped. We're trying to figure this out right now. Keep submitting your receipts. We'll get to processing them, but no promises on how long it's going to take. And the average time ended up being like 45 days. We did not lose customers. They kept coming back. They kept taking their pictures. And when you'd ask them why, they're like, well, they're eventually going to get to it. And it's so easy. Why wouldn't I do it? I know I'm going to save, even if it's down the road. And because we could be falling over for 45 days and not have lost significantly more customers than when things were working, was the aha that, like, we have found the sweet spot and the beauty of something that is so easy to use that people will do it no matter what. That was the aha moment. It was only 3 months into it where we were like, this was the right decision. We need to keep accelerating. That was for me, clearly the point that I knew it was going to be successful.
I get it. All right. So now, so it's almost like you could see them willing to go through the pain because they loved other aspects of the business so much. And that's an interesting metric to look for, frankly, for other entrepreneurs that I've not heard before. So for me, that's a big win from our conversation. So thank you for that. One of many big wins, I would say. So let's talk through the SoftBank relationship then. Like, how did that come to be? And what can we learn from that?
Yeah, back in September and October, we had actually just raised another round that was led by Iconic and DST Global. So two of the other largest VC funds, best known funds in the world.
Yeah.
And at that time, we had chosen both of them because I'd started to develop a really good relationship with them. I'd met them pre-pandemic, so I'd met them in person. They had flown out. They had met us in person. They had tracked us through the pandemic and reached out and were just trying to be helpful. They weren't trying to get anything. They're like, can I help with connections? Can I do other things for you? They were showing that they truly believed in us. They believed in the business. They said, well, your current metrics aren't what we need them to be to get you the valuation you're asking for. As long as you guys don't need money right now, wait a couple more months and then come back to us. And that's exactly what we did. We said, yep, let us make sure that the business is stable through COVID. Let us start showing that all the numbers are ramping back up. And then we'll feel in a good place. So we had just closed that round with those two. They're amazing partners that we added on, raised $80 million from them. In January, we got, SoftBank had reached out to us and they basically said, look, we saw you were the number one app in the entire app store for a week in December, which is true. We were above YouTube, Instagram, everyone. We were the number one app in the entire app store.
Wow,
And
congrats.
they said, not only were you the number one app, you have better retention than typically a paid for subscription has once someone's paying. Like, you retain customers really well, and you have usage rates that look like a game. They said those combination of that growth along with that level of retention and that level of activity, we've never seen before in this space. Tell us more about what you're doing. We want to get involved whenever you're ready. So I said, makes sense. And then we actually were approached by a bunch of other groups that were all trying to kind of preempt us to think about doing another round. But SoftBank was top of mind for me. I loved how ambitious their team was, how long-term of a view that they took, because I still feel we're just at the starting point right now. I think Fetch has a 20, 25x in front of it. And they believe that wholeheartedly right away as well. So when we looked at the opportunity, I got the chance to speak with Masa and talk with him. His ambition for us and his belief in what we were doing was just infectious, even back to me as the founder. So it made a ton of sense to do the deal. So that's the deal that we ended up just closing. And it's going to allow us to reduce a lot of the financial risk that was still involved with the business, go out there, make aggressive bets, and continue to focus on how do we drive the next 20x in the business.
So we're coming up on time, but I thought I would just ask you if there's anything else that we should have talked about around customer discovery as part of this discussion that we haven't, that you would like other fellow entrepreneurs and venture investors to know about. Any kind of anything we didn't cover?
No, I mean, it's the thing that you hear about when fundraising. You will get more no's than you'll get yeses. And as long as you're learning from those no's, that's great. It doesn't mean you have to change your pitch every single time, but you should take the feedback, try to get feedback from the ones who say no. Very few people will follow up after they get a no, like a week or two later, and be like, hey, just wanted some more feedback. So why was it a no? I'm not going to try to reconvince you. Just, can you help me understand that? Get that feedback, be willing to take that critical feedback, and just come from a place initially of believing it's right. Even if you don't think so, believe it's right. Challenge yourself about, okay, well, if it is right, what could I do that's different? And then decide whether or not it makes sense to do those things. But always be willing to be self-critical. Hold yourself to that high level of, intellectual integrity to challenge yourself through that. It's the same when you get scientific results. Like, you have to believe the results. You can't believe that something was wrong first. You'll go double check and make sure that something, there wasn't some other variable that made everything not, turn out that way. But I think people should do that in their sales process as well.
One thing I find helpful in the scientific approach is that the scientific model is you have an idea, and then you basically say, I'm wrong. Okay, now I'm right.
Yep.
Right. When the evidence kind of comes, it kind of forces this kind of discipline on you, because our mind tricks ourselves to always want to think that we're right. And I think that is helpful for entrepreneurs, except for with a little bit more balance, because it's hard to get up every day, be a leader of the business and say to yourself, I'm wrong. until I'm right. But I think it's good to kind of have that mental check along the way of your response to information, and your thoughts on, persevering and talking to a lot of investors makes a ton of sense. I mean, really, there's investors know a lot. They don't know everything. It's good to see what you can learn from them as you get on that process and to persevere.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much, Wes. Congrats on all the success and for building a great business. And here in Madison, looking forward to the next chapters to come with Fetch and everything else. So thank you very much for taking the time today.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jon.
Great. Take care.
All right. Take it easy.